Hey, this is Todd Smith, CEO of Symphony Workforce and Discovery Genius. I am here with Lisa Wilson, who leads HR for one of the flagship locations for Case New Holland. Lisa, we'll just jump right into it. Case New Holland is a global company.
Yes.
That is on 5 continents.
Yes.
That builds heavy ag equipment. That is born to plant, harvest, and feed the world.
Yes.
How does Case go about harvesting the young people and talent to work at Case? Is that fair as a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of different ways.
Okay.
Historically, it's been college internships. We have a college recruitment group that goes to all the universities across the nation. They do spring, fall job fairs. We're actually, we have jobs posted right now for our next summer group, right?
Okay.
HR, engineering, whatever that looks like, finance. We also do high school co-ops and college co-ops. So a co-op is a little bit different. And the high school co-op, they work during summer break. There's only certain things they can do because they're under the age of 18, so they can't be on the manufacturing floor, but they can be in the offices and doing that type of stuff. The college co-op works, and most of our college co-ops end up being some of our college interns.
Okay.
Or our high school interns. So college co-op, they work a semester at CNH. They go to school for a semester.
Okay.
Work a semester, go to school a semester. Theory being they're earning the money to pay for their college as they go, but what CNH's commitment is then is that we have a spot for you when it's that semester to work.
Awesome.
Okay. So for Grand Island, this is our second year. We started the Youth Apprentice Program.
Okay.
We have career pathways in our backyard. Grand Island School District has gone to an academy style, so it allows the students time to do their academy core curriculum, but it also allows them time to have every other day where they can actually get in and work with employers, whether it be auto mechanics, whether it be manufacturing. They just started a manufacturing engineering division over there, whether it be education, nursing, whatever it is.
Right.
So we took on our first 4 students last fall.
Okay.
They are also with us, I'm happy to report, after they graduated. And one of my welding engineers actually got accepted to Ferris State. So he's going to Ferris State next academic year.
Okay.
And he's going into weld technology.
Nice.
Engineering. So it was a conversation. He didn't know what it was. He's like, I want to be an engineer. I said, oh, you like to weld. Have you heard of weld engineering? And then it just kind of went from there.
Right.
So he is one that, coming off of the apprentice, we're going to co-op him while he's in college. It'll be a little bit different where he won't do one semester because it's in Michigan, I believe. He's going to come home every summer, and we'll guarantee him a spot with our engineering team during that time.
So is there if when Case thinks about developing young people, and you just laid out a wonderful thought process, and around the globe they do it differently, but everyone's driving to the point of, I want to meet young people, I want to meet them early and bring them on. How does that pipeline look today? And what are you looking for today? Is it different in a young person than it was before 10 years ago? Is the market different than it was 10 years ago? How does all that work together?
So the pipeline is similar.
Okay.
I think the difference is in how we approach it.
Okay.
So 10 years ago, and I'm going to speak to this area because it's
Absolutely.
the area I know. Getting engineers, getting college graduates to come back to this community, right? Because they go to Lincoln or Omaha for their degree, and we're in a town of 55,000 versus 500,000 people.
Right.
Or they want to go to Chicago, or they want to go to the East Coast, or whatever.
Right.
And so we were like, oh, how do we get them to come home?
Right.
And that's really when all the conversations started. Like, how do we get legislation to a point where we can tap into that talent pool when they're in high school? What do we have to do to create those connections with the universities to offer maybe more courses in their backyard versus having to go an hour and a half or 2 hours down the road.
Right.
And so it really, as a community, caused us to come together
Right.
and say we have to do this different. And so that's really where it all started.
Right.
When the legislation changed in 2016 is really where it opened it up to get to those kids when they're in high school and they're just so very impressionable and they're trying to figure it out. And it's not just about getting them in and getting them exposed to it, but it's helping mentor and coach them
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So I think we've done a good job of it here in Grand Island. We're recruiting our second class right now.
So you had 4 successful kids come through the apprenticeship program. Next year you'll be at 8.
Right, I'm recruiting 4 right now. So I'll have my 4 first-year students that will help mentor on the second-year students, and the second year will help mentor the third year.
Right.
Each apprentice program, if it's industrial manufacturing, is about a 2 to 2.5 year program.
Right.
Welding is 3 to 3.5 years, depending how much school and skill-based learning. So.
Got it. So I'm gonna give you a 3-part question. I know you're good enough to handle this. So talk to me about the challenges of recruiting rural youth, urban youth, right? So just out of city. And then talk to me about pulling the curtains back and changing the perception of what it is to come work through a community college to manufacturing, that it's not your grandpa's manufacturing.
So, okay, rural youth.
Yes.
Challenges with rural youth is outside of the Grand Island area. They're tied, if they're from a farming background, they're tied to the farm. So getting them in and working, because so many of them now are helping mom and dad who took over for grandpa and grandma. And so sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get them to commit to the entire program, right? Because they need to have the freedom to be able to farm. So like
Right.
when you were talking with Micah,
Right.
I was homeschooled. Well, during harvest, I took
Stop.
harvest off
Right.
because we had to go help grandma and grandpa. So that's one of the challenges we're seeing. I can tell you, of my engineering group within my manufacturing engineers, I would say 30 to 40% of them are connected to a family farm of some sorts, and
Good.
that's how we got them back out here.
Got it.
Is that connection?
Yeah.
So then when you talk about
Urban.
I grew up in Omaha, so I'm
Okay.
very urban,
Yes.
not rural. And I get very frustrated even with my friends today because they forget about the rural part and they forget what drives our economy.
Right.
You know, in urban, you think that the malls and the banks and the ConAgras of the world are that's all that drives our economy,
Right.
when in reality, it's all of the farming and agriculture that feeds those entities,
Right.
right? So they just don't know. They don't know what they can't see.
Correct.
So trying to connect with them, which is kind of where your organization comes into play, because you can help us connect with them. You can
Right.
help us teach them at all levels of their education or their life cycle, right?
Right.
Because you meet with us, you get our product out to them, helps make the connection. And so that's why I was so excited about your platform, because it'll help break down that barrier.
Absolutely. And so you and I've had a lot of conversations on the third part, which is this mystery that going to community college is somehow less than going to 4-year, or going to community college somehow means you're not going to end up making 6 figures in life. That going to community college means that somehow you weren't the smart kid in high school, which can't be further from the truth for the kid, and it can't be further from the truth for the adults around that kid advising them what's the next step, right? And where companies like Case, and we can list off a gaggle of companies, are closer to kids going through 2-year to pull them out and in the industry and to partner with them than they are traditionally through waiting a 4-year process. Can you speak to some of that?
So the trades have changed immensely over the years.
Mhm.
It's not the blue collar, everybody has a cigarette hanging out of their mouth, and
Right.
there's smoke all over the shop floor, okay? It's not dirty, grungy, grody, gross. And so overcoming that stigmatism, right, has been the first challenge.
Right.
Which I think we've done a fairly good job of that. With the technology the way it is, you can easily go to a CCC, Central Community College, for example, and get your 2-year degree. And coming off that 2-year degree, be making $50,000 or $60,000 within manufacturing, which is a nice salary to start supporting your family, right?
At 20 years old.
To get your first house, whatever. And people don't realize that because the educational system has been designed to drive the 4-year degree.
Mhm.
Because back when you and I were growing up,
Right.
you had to go to college. Like,
Right.
if you didn't go to college, what were you gonna do? You weren't gonna be able to, I mean,
Right.
I'm just thinking
Success-
of my
success-
mom's
Success
panic,
is, right? Success is.
Right, so changing that mindset. So I sit on a board with the state, right, and we partner with the Department of Education and like, how do we turn it around?
Mhm.
And so a lot of education has gone into between the businesses, Department of Education, the state boards, the schools, career pathways, Grand Island, educating the parents.
Mhm.
Because they were fed that for so long that your
Right.
kid has to have at least a 4-year degree or they are gonna be on food stamps and
Right.
Medicare,
Absolutely. Right.
you know.
They're living in your basement.
right,
Right.
they're never gonna leave. So, we came together to say, okay, how do we re-educate the parents? So the focus is really the parents. Because the kids, if you show the kid a path and they have an interest, they're gonna follow.
Yes.
But if you have a parent saying, oh, no, you gotta go to Lincoln, you gotta go to UNK, you gotta have a master's degree,
Right.
it's a roadblock.
Yes.
So it's really about educating the parents that like, look, your child can get into one of these technical pathways, right? Or
Right.
a nursing pathway. Even there's instructional pathways now that are 2 years versus 4
Absolutely.
years. So no matter what your pathway, it's not a shortcut, but there's a
Correct.
step in between now, right?
Correct.
So the community colleges have now become a feeder pool for the 4-year universities. So really, no matter what you want to do, you could start there,
Correct.
save a lot of money, you can pay cash.
Save a lot of money.
So we focus on that,
Right.
pay cash, get them through that first 2 years, so then if they decide to move on,
Right.
they're not going into debt for the full 4 or 5.
Correct.
And so it's been a challenge, but it's growing. It's growing. So you've got your Department of Economic Development on board, you've got your chambers on board, you've got all of your governing agencies, your educational agencies saying, oh, we have to do this. So
Right.
finally, everybody's kind of come together and said, okay, we need to drive this because it's a stepping stone. And if they get through this first 2 years, they can support themselves.
Absolutely.
They can support a family.
Yep.
And if they choose to continue and they want to move to that 2-3-digit income, 150,000,
Right.
they can do that.
Absolutely.
But they're going to be much more successful than you or I.
It's funny you mentioned a lot of things there. Our next interview like this is actually with the Bellevue group.
Mhm.
So it'll be Russ, the mayor,
Yep.
Jeff, their superintendent of K-12. It'll be Kevin, who's their chamber president, potentially Mary, who joined their Bellevue University, all sitting around because they've really adopted our platform as a way to move the city forward. Right, that in specifically through Bellevue, their relationship with they have 47 relationships around the country with community colleges, but specifically in this state, that to drive kids, 100% of high school kids, if you think of that group engaging in our Discover Your Genius platform, that 50% of those kids should engage through the community college system in the state. And then because a 4-year like Bellevue accepts all credits, every one of those credits transfer, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're in the industry. But industry can pick kids out at any part of that funnel, right? But you need the players, just as you said, to come together and go, hey, we got to get away from stigmas and get to what works for kids so that when they come out, they're not strapped into a debt number
Right.
where their life is impeded. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about Case New Home in terms of what you guys are doing here, where you guys are going to go as a company. Tell me some of that.
So right now, what we do here at this at this point here is we built the combine, the red combine. So we are working on our next gen launch, which is 3 years out. It's gonna be much more technology than what they have today, if you can imagine that. And so really, that's our focus. It's a much larger machine, it's more technologically advanced. And so looking at that platform, right, we have to make sure we have all the right people in place when it hits our production line. So anywhere from our manufacturing engineers to the design engineers to the electrical engineers to the software engineers, all of those things have to come into play for us to be successful with that launch. So that's really the big focus for us right now is preparing for that. So when we look at our college recruits, when we look at our high school recruits, when we're looking at our internal development growth potential of our current group, we're always looking at what do we need to support, how do we need to grow to be successful moving forward.
Right.
And I would say that's true across all of our platforms, whether it's ag, industrial, or FCA.
Got it. So tell me, last thing, tell me why Discover Your Genius? We met a while ago at a meeting.
About a year ago at the chamber.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah, so your platform intrigued me because I was working on the apprentice program already.
Right.
And I have I have career pathways in my back door, and they're kind of like the mold, right?
Absolutely.
Nebraska.
Absolutely.
So, and all the manufacturers in this community were integral in creating that center. But then when you guys came in, it opened up a whole nother pool of kids. So it's not just the kids within the Grand Island school system or the surrounding school systems, it's now all of Nebraska. And now you guys have opened us up to university, and you've opened us up to, it's just opened us up to more recruitment pools.
Right.
And more kids to get in front of. So I think it's a great platform to brand our company. I think it's a great platform for us to sell our company and to connect with those young kids.
All right. This has been one of the joys building. Getting to know Case, because I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, went through the University of South Dakota, knew what a combine was, knew what it did, but to really understand and walk into the back and see how it actually works and the amount of genius that it takes through every part of this company to be successful, it's been amazing.
Yep.
You personally have been a joy to be around because I think you get it from what it's going to take to move the company forward in terms of human capital. No matter how good the widget is, if you don't have the right people, right, and you don't have a diverse group of people in terms of thought and background, you're not able to solve the new challenges that come up. And you got that from the get-go. You got it from your work, you get it from the things that you do in your spare time with education and people groups. I have to commend you. We brought you into, obviously, one of our first competitions that we then had the governor step in and do this big to-do for our kids, and he was wonderful at that. But 2 young women from Bellevue West High School told about their solution, and I watched you go up to those 2 young ladies and say, hey, by the way, we want to push this as Case New Holland because we care about you, we care about the ideas.
Yeah, it wasn't as Case New Holland though. Their platform would have supported a state program.
Right.
So ironically, Governor Ricketts and I were talking to them about the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, that's how you move people, right? So kudos to you and the governor and whatnot. So, as always,
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Yep.
All right, take care.